My research question is, how does viewpoint and bias in recorded history affect one's perception of major historical events? So what exactly causes bias and difference in opinion and viewpoint in historical documents? One of the main things that impacts this is that there are two sides to everything. So there are two sides to every war, so each account of a war is going to be different than another account. Different groups are treated differently based on their cultural ideas and their beliefs. Differences in morals, so people are going to have a different view of what's right versus wrong. And differences in regional backgrounds, so somebody from America is going to have a different idea of what American life is like than, say, somebody from Great Britain is going to have. Another thing that impacts bias is inaccuracies in receiving information. So if somebody who's documenting an event doesn't understand why an event started, they're not going to be able to say exactly what happened correctly, and they're not going to be able to document that efficiently. So in choosing a research question, I noticed that one of the main themes between all of the stimulus packets was viewpoint and how it affects it, and I saw this idea of most and the historian as a participant and attitude toward Muslim women in the West, and they both also showed how viewpoint can skew one's perception of events and how bias also affects it. So this brought me to my claim that when digesting and writing about major historical events, it is important to include multiple viewpoints so that bias can be avoided and the whole account of the event can be learned and described in the best way historically, futuristically, and culturistically possible. This can be explored through the historical lens with the American side of the American Revolution. So they viewed themselves as patriots, revolutionaries, continentalists, colonials, Yankees, or Whigs, as explained by Cogliano, who writes about different major historical events. And they also thought that the British taxes were unfair because of all the resources that they were bringing to Britain, and they didn't think they should have to pay anything else. So here's an example of different acts that were placed on them that all taxed the colonists, such as like the Tea Act, the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act. Great Britain had a different view on this war. They called it the American Revolt instead of the American Revolution. And they believed that the taxes they were putting on the colonists were fair and generous. The British people living in Britain had to actually pay more taxes than the American colonists, and they believed the colonists were being ungrateful for the limited taxes they were placing on them. So citizens living in Britain had to pay 26 shillings of tax compared to a citizen in New England's 1 shilling of tax. So when historians viewed this war, they realized that there's a lot of bias in documentation from both sides because they each had different views on what the war was like. And they note that a lot of European history is full of bias because not everybody living in Europe had equal rights and were able to document their side of history correctly. So some individuals may say that primary sources are the best way to learn about different historical events because they provide a window into what the past was like, but this is not always the case because there's a lot of bias in primary documents because not all things will be included. And this brings two main solutions that is important for documentations to include all sides of an event so that future generations can learn exactly what happened, like what's happening today. So when we document things right now, we should keep in mind all the different viewpoints so that bias can be avoided. And when reading historical documents, take into account all viewpoints and ideas. But this isn't very easy to accomplish because not all sides are represented, especially in European history, so it's hard to find everything.
Okay, Megan, one question for you. So you talked a little bit about some of the real world implications, but if you can expand upon it, says, what might be the real world implications or consequences of your findings, and then what are the implications to our community?
So right now, people are documenting about events that are happening right now, like the wars in the Middle East, and we need to document both sides so that we include all viewpoints so that bias for future generations can be avoided. And in our society today, it's hard to not have bias against certain groups. So we might not. So we need to keep in mind the bias that we have against people, so we can document everything correctly.
Good, thank you.